Good afternoon. My name is Lee Kofman, and on behalf of the Geelong Regional Library Corporation, I would like to welcome you to this special online event commemorating Social Inclusion Week 2020, an International Day for People with a Disability. The Geelong Regional Library Corporation acknowledges Wadawarung and Eastern Maar original owners of the lands on which our library services operate. We pay respect to Wadawarung and Eastern Maar elders past, present, and emerging. We acknowledge and celebrate First Nations peoples of this land as the custodians of learning, literacy, knowledge, and story. Just before we launch into our conversation, I would like to mention two housekeeping matters. So first of all, as you can see, we are very privileged here to be in this beautiful library today, recording this event. We can't have a live audience, but we would really, really love your participation. So I have here a laptop open, and I would love you to send my way questions or comments anytime you like. What you need to do is you have on your computer a function. It's like a little button called Q&A. And if you're using iPhone or iPad, you can just put your finger to the screen, touch your finger, and then you'll find it. Another thing I wanted to say is that, as I was saying before, we're recording the event, so just shortly after, the library will upload it on the YouTube channel. So you're very welcome to watch it again or to recommend other people to watch it. Just a few words about myself. I'm a Russian-born Israeli-Australian writer. My first three books were fiction books. They were published in Hebrew, in Israel. And in Australia, I've written two more books in English and also edited two anthologies of personal essays by well-known Australian writers. As well as that, I teach writing. And this was how I met for the first time Jill Sanguinetti, and I hope I pronounced your surname correctly. You'll correct me if not. So last year, Jill came to one of my writing workshops, and very soon I found out that she's a very good writer. She doesn't really need my advice. So I'll tell you just a little bit about her and about her wonderful co-author, Marie Younan. So Jill is a retired lecturer and researcher in education. She has had a memoir, School Days of a Methodist Lady, A Journey for Girlhood, published in 2014 by Wild Dingo Press. In the new and profoundly moving book, A Different Kind of Seeing, I'll just show you the beautiful, beautiful cover, which we'll soon discuss. So in her new and profoundly moving book, A Different Kind of Seeing, she collaborated with her co-author, Marie Younan, to tell Marie's exceptional, inspiring story of overcoming difficulties associated with her blindness, as well as with the inherited impact of genocide. Marie, an Assyrian refugee who did not learn to read and write until her 30s, has since graduated from a variety of courses and built a successful career as an interpreter. She now works with counsellors and refugees at the Foundation Center for Survivors of Torture. I'll be talking about the friendship between Marie and Jill that led to this book. I'll be talking about to Marie and Jill about Marie's exceptional story and the writing process of this book. But what I would like to do first, as I was saying before, is to talk about the cover. I'll just show you quickly again, because I think it's a really moving cover of this book. It has Braille writing on it too, but that's not what I want to ask you about. So I wanted to ask Marie about the man who is in this image. So as you can see, there is Marie there. She's studying Braille with a man to whom she also dedicated this book, Ben Hewitt. I hope I pronounced this surname right, Marie. You'll correct me in a minute. I did, thank you. So what I would like to know, Marie, is if you can tell us a little bit about Ben and also what he has meant for you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for having us, Lee. And it's absolutely a very special day today. Thank you very much. And when I met Ben, I didn't know nothing about school, nothing about reading and writing. And when he showed me a Braille, I was a bit confused how I'm going to learn to read these dots. But he was a very special teacher that at the age of 34 and never seen my life that he taught me. After 2 years, I start reading a book. He really taught me English language because I came to Melbourne with no English. He taught me English language and Braille all at the same time. And I was very keen to learn. And Ben was one of the kind, caring person, very patient. I think every lesson to him was a fun. He never get bored of teaching. And every day he was the same person. I asked him one, I said, every day I see you, you're happy, you're full of jokes. Do you take something? He said, yes. What do you take? Cup of tea.
That's wonderful. And we'll, oh, sorry, Marie, did you want to add a bit more about Ben?
He was actually my backbone. Whatever after finish learning Braille, and then he said to me, I'm enrolling you to TAFE. And I said, no. He said, yes, you are in. And he said, why not? I said, because everyone there can see except me. I can't see. He said, so that's okay. You will learn. Students there, they will learn from you. And I was lucky that Jill was my teacher. I was very lucky.
Thank you. And we'll talk more about this incredible process that you went through, learning literacy and Braille and English at the same time. But you just finished your answer with Jill, and I want to ask Jill about another really crucial to this book's existence, friendship, which is between yourself, Jill, and Marie, of course. Could you tell us, please, how you met Marie and also how the idea for this book eventually evolved?
Well, I met Marie in, when was it? 1990, when I was a teacher in the Migrant Women's Learning Centre. And it was really a wonderful time and a wonderful class of about 20 women from all different countries. Some were refugees. And everybody shared their lives. There was a feminist ethos. And we had a lot of fun, didn't we, Marie?
We did.
It was a bit like Ben. I have never had so much enjoyment in teaching. And very soon, Marie, she was very, very nervous when she first came in. But it didn't take long for Marie to get to know all the other ladies and share their stories. And she was terrific in the classroom because she was so passionate to learn. And I do remember she had her little Braille machine she would bring in. So if I was teaching a word and others were writing it down, Maria was going clink, clink, clink on her Braille machine. I remember it was normal teaching, except I had to say, spell out the words because she couldn't read the blackboard. So if we were talking about a word, maybe a word like struggle, and people would give little stories about that word, and I would say S-T-R, and she'd go clink, 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 and a most beautiful smile would come out on her face. So it just looked completely joyful. So Marie, you know, it was a privilege really, and she really was a wonderful presence in the classroom. And we kept in touch over the years, didn't we? And it wasn't really until we had a reunion about 5 or 6 years ago with some of the other teachers, and you can read all about the other teachers in the book. There's lots of stories in this book. We were going to each write something about a student. So I said, I bags go with Marie Younan. So Marie came round and started telling her story, and I was immediately hooked by her stories. And she was a great storyteller. And so I said, Marie, this is a whole book. And Marie said, well, I really want to write a book because Ben Hewitt always told me to write a book. And we went from there. And the friendship grew as part of the process over the last 8 years of going to each other's homes. And really, you know, I think Marie and I got to know each other very well in the process of telling all the stories and going over them. So, yeah, I've been very privileged.
Oh, thank you. And it's something really interesting that struck me as I was reading the book with Marie. Kept staying in touch and becoming friends with all your former teachers, Marie, Ben, Jill, and there are some other names in the book as well. Now, I really want to get into the specifics of Marie's story, but before this, I think it would be good to place your story, Marie, a little bit in the context of your cultural background because it plays such an important part in your story. And I suspect your background is not that familiar in Australia. So in the book, Marie, you write, I'm Assyrian, not Syrian, even though I was born in Syria. And I can only imagine how many times people probably got it wrong in your life here, Marie. So could you perhaps tell us a little bit about your culture? Who are Assyrians?
Assyrian are very old. It's actually a language, very old. And our country is Babylon. We speak Aramaic.
Yeah. And from what struck me really when I was sort of looking at the cultural context, the cultural context of your book is also how resilient Assyrian people have been because they went through so many persecutions, and you moved so many times throughout the world just to find a better place for themselves. And I think it was really interesting how your family's history, Marie, really reflects this unfortunate state of events. It really showed you yourselves, I mean, in your lifetime, you moved so many times, so many countries. Would you perhaps mind telling us a little bit about the moves of your family from place to place?
I actually born in Syria. We all born in Syria, but we Assyrian. My mom was born in Iraq, and my dad was born in Hakkari, it's called.
Yeah.
And
It's in Turkey.
Turkey.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. And we moved from Syria to Lebanon. And then because during the 70s it was a war, so we have to move again back to Syria for 12 months. My parents were here. Most of my siblings were here. And then again, we have to move my 3 or 4 sisters. We have to move to Lebanon again, go to Greece. My sisters came here and I stayed in Greece for 3 years. And then I came here. And I've been to America 3 times,
Oh.
to Canada twice.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. And you speak, as a result of all these moves, you speak 4 languages, and we'll talk about this more a bit later. But I want to go now back to the start of your book, Marie. And I thought that both of you decided to open your book in a really striking way. I just love the beginning, it's so powerful. So the book begins with an account of how Marie, as a young girl, finds out for the first time that she is different to other people. But she is blind, but other people can actually see. And I wonder, Marie, if you would like to tell us in your own words about what it was like for you to find this, how this happened, and how old you were then.
I probably was about 7 or 8. I think I was probably 7. My 2 sisters and I, we were sitting in the floor, throwing the ball to each other. And I always used to follow them by listening to them and follow them where they're going, outside, inside. That day was probably like today, very hot day. So we were sitting in the family room playing, throwing the ball to each other. And it was my turn to find the ball. The ball went under the bed. And I thought I will find it very easy. But I tried to move my hands and I couldn't find it. And I said to my sister Mona, she was about 4, I said, I can't find the ball. And she just like bent and she grabbed it. And I was surprised. I was growing up with 9 girls and 2 boys then. And I said, Mona, how did you find it? Why couldn't I find it? She stand up and she said, oh, because you can't see. We can see, and that's why you always have to take someone's arm. And I felt like, oh, straight away I said to myself, then I've got my own little world. And then I went to my mum. She was at her parents' house. I went and stand behind my mum's chair, and I was like very sad because no one told me that I was different from my sisters. And my mum looked at me. She said, what's wrong? You look sad. Did anyone upset you? I said, no, but why didn't you tell me that I can't see and my sisters all can see and I can't see? She said, oh, that's all right, that's okay. Since that day, I stepped back from my sisters. I didn't want to interrupt them. Sometimes they used to come and hold my hand and used to say, come on, let's go and play hide and seek. But they said, don't close your eyes because you can't see us anyway. And I said, no, I don't want to play. I used to stand up like next to the wall or sitting in a chair and listening to them. So since that day, I found my own little world. Lee, you can stop me anytime you want to.
No, I love listening to you, please.
I found myself my own little world, and I decided to sit with my grandmother. My grandmother was very protective. She protected me more than my other siblings. And I said, I have to find something for myself. I found a best friend, which is radio. And I sit and listen to the radio. And I taught myself Arabic language through listening to the radio. Until now, I can't go to bed without my radio next to me.
Oh, that's beautiful. So I just wonder, Marie, why do you think nobody told you that you were blind until then? Do you think they were protecting you?
Sorry.
Do you think perhaps your family, you mentioned that your family was quite protective, and I wonder, do you think the reason that nobody told you until that day that you were blind was because they wanted to protect you from that?
I think she protected me because she felt sorry that she put that Chanel in my eyes, and she thought like it's my fault. I wish I never done it. So if anything happened to you, it's going to be my fault. So I have to protect you. All my sisters were very protective, all the time, like with me and around me and taking my arm, and I take their arm. And until now, all my nieces watch me what I'm wearing. Is it nice clothes? Is it not nice? Don't wear this. And I always take their ideas.
And I loved in your book, Marie, that you talk about the sense of fashion and how much it was important to you. Now, you just mentioned cochineal that your grandmother put in your eyes. And actually, I wanted to ask Jill as well, because in the book, I found it really interesting. So just for the audience, I just want to say that and Jill and Marie will explain better, but this is the story of how Marie actually lost vision when she was young. So in the book, from what I understand, it was a quite complex story. There were several reasons to what happened to your eyesight, Marie. And Jill, you write how you helped Marie to find out what actually happened. Could you maybe tell us about this, Jill?
Well, Marie's told me right from the start about the fact that she was blind because her grandmother had accidentally blinded her by putting cochineal in her eyes when she had some kind of eye infection when she was only 6 months old. And they took the bandage off the next day and her eyes were white. And so one of the threads of the story is Marie's complex relationship with her grandmother, who she loved more than anybody, but the grandmother's guilt and Marie feeling guilty on behalf of her grandmother. So it's quite a complex story. It's one of the threads in this book. But talking to David, my husband, who's a doctor, and doing reading and Googling, I found out more about glaucoma and childhood glaucoma. And I said to Marie, because with childhood glaucoma, you can get when you're a baby. And it's actually more common amongst people from the Middle East, actually. And I thought, maybe what Marie had was actually glaucoma, and that was why they put the cochineal in her eyes. And so I said to Marie, do you know about childhood glaucoma? And Marie, you said, oh my God, I've never heard of it.
No, never.
So it was a revelation, and we realised with more reading that Marie would have had childhood glaucoma, which is probably one of the reasons why she was blind. And that if she had only had her corneas blinded with the cochineal, she could have had a corneal transplant and she would have got her sight back.
And there's a really moving moment in this book. I mean, there's so many moving moments, but there's a moving moment when Marie, your grandmother, is dying, and you want to sort of relieve her of her guilt. And can you tell that story to us, please?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank David and Jill because they shift me out from that burden I was holding in my shoulders about my grandmother. Always, like, if I walk into the door, she used to cry. And why are you crying? I should be crying. And so they shift me out from that guilt I used to feel, her guilt. I feel more lighter now. I thank them very much.
That's very beautiful.
When I arrived in Melbourne, my grandmother, she was 100. She just needs someone to hold her hand. She could walk. I walked into her bedroom and she started calling my name. And I said to my mom, I said, I'm going to make her happy. I'm going to say, Mom, we used to call her Yumma. I said, I'm going to say to her that I can see now. I said, Yumma, I can see now. She said, no, I know you will never see. You just saying that to make me happy, but I know you will never see.
That's very beautiful. Yeah, there's a lot of really strong moments like this in the book, and one of them is when you write, I learned early to contain my feelings and not be demanding. I had to make up for being blind by being extra good. And I found this really illuminating how being blind can actually affect your personality and your behavior as well. Do you think your blindness has changed you in some other ways? Has it affected you, maybe behavior or maybe your personality?
Yeah, I always think, first of all, I say, I don't have to be without mind just because I'm blind. I have to learn, anything new, I have to learn, I have to take care of myself. Even though I'm blind, I should care about other people. Did I answer your question?
Of course, yes.
Sorry, I'd like to answer that one as well.
Please.
because I think, and I know other people who are blind as well, Marie is a great communicator. She's got a very strong personality, and I think she has learned to project who she is, and she's actually charismatic, and she attracts people towards her for that reason. And I think that's a little bit to do with the fact that she's compensating because she can't communicate visually. But the other thing about Marie is she has a phenomenal memory. In the details in that book, I couldn't believe the little details about that little house that they had in Tel Wadi Art so long ago, and over 50 years ago. And this is something else. Marie always remembers people, names. She remembers lots of details. And over the course of writing this book, Marie has given me back quite a lot of memories from that year that I was teaching those ladies. The funny little incidents in the classroom that I had forgotten that Marie told me about.
Fascinating. And actually, in this context, we already have two audience questions here. There's one audience question that I think will really nicely follow on to what you just said. So somebody is asking, how did the other TAFE students treat Marie? Were they inspired by her? Jill, the question is for you.
Yes, but I think Marie also should answer
Sure,
this.
sure.
They were inspired by her. They were inspired by the fact that she was learning but also the fact that she was able to enjoy herself and have fun and have friends. And all of these ladies had a lot of problems. But I think when they saw Marie with her disability, it give them confidence to overcome their issues. But I think Marie should answer this about the other TAFE students.
Yeah, it's also, I'll answer for the other question. Since I knew I was blind, I said to myself, I have to put in my mind a storage room. Anything I hear, I have to store it in my storage room. So I've got a storage room to store everything there. And students, I used to listen to their voices, and I really was very easy to, I think I'm easy to make friends because I like people. I like to be with people. I can't be on my own. I talk a lot, so I can't be on my own. And I said, I have to talk. I can't say, and I had to talk. And sometimes I used to, during a break, class break, I used to remember things, so I have to write them down before Jill come back. And everyone went for coffee, and I'm sitting there and writing with my Braille machine. I can hear about 6, 7 students standing behind me, looking at me, watching me brailing with no reading, but just brailing. And I can hear them say, oh, what she's writing. Look how fast she's going. And I used to look at the back. Yes, because I remember what last thing Jill have left for us, and I have to write it down because I don't want to miss anything.
That's wonderful. I want to go just a little bit back before you came to Australia, still to your childhood, Marie. Despite your family's love for you, you describe your younger years as being really difficult, and you gave us a little bit of taste for it already in some of your answers. In the book, you write, I was locked in an empty room. Sorry, I was locked in an empty ward, like being in a cage with a blanket thrown over the top. Elsewhere, you write, with boredom almost killed you. And I wonder, how did you cope? Did you have some imaginary world perhaps that you went into, or did you have some other ways of coping?
Can you read that again?
Of course, of course. So you describe how much you were loved by your family, but you also write about how tough it was, how the boredom sometimes almost killed you, how you were sort of locked like in an empty ward. You say in the book, it's like being in a cage with a blanket thrown over the top. So I wonder what kind of strategies did you use to, because you're a very resilient person, so how did you sort of cope? What were your coping mechanisms? Did you go into some imaginary world in your head perhaps, or anything else?
Sometimes I used to visit my grandmother and go with my friend, special friend. She's in England now. And I said to myself, I have no choice. I have to leave this life. I used to go to bed 3-4 times a week and crying in bed. No one knew. And my niece, I think she heard today about it. No one knew that I was going to bed and crying. I didn't have because my world was very small and I didn't know much about you people's world. So I wasn't doing much, just sitting there for hours and hours, especially during the winter. I couldn't go outside, and sitting and listening to my grandmother and her cousin telling all the stories from 1912 until during the 60s. Yeah.
Thank you. I want to talk about a bit now your arrival to Australia. As a migrant myself, I really loved all sorts of descriptions that you have there about the things that excited you in your first months or even first year in Australia. I especially love your description of the rubbish bins in Australia and why you like them more than the ones you had. But I also, on a more serious note, I really loved how you describe walking in the bush or going to the sea and connecting to Australia through the nature. So would you mind telling us a little bit about your first impressions of Australia, including the rubbish bins?
When I first arrived in Melbourne, it was a beautiful sunny day. My mom, she took me outside to smell the garden, to touch the vegetables my dad have planted. And she was telling me about our neighbors who are from different countries. And when she was telling me about the neighbors, and I said, oh no, I can't speak English. I can't speak these languages. Then my life will be more miserable than back home. But I was happy because my whole family was here. And then I went and stayed with my sister in Mornington, and my nieces took me to the beach. I never seen the beach, and I never felt the water, and I could see the color then. I was looking at the beach and only can see is blue water and blue sky. And I touched the water, it was cold. And my niece said, you can walk in it, you can swim in it. And that was something very new to me. And I really love staying in Melbourne, and I had a new life in Melbourne, marvelous Melbourne.
And there was some point, Marie, when you write in your book, where there was one particular year was the year that was like a turning point in your life and things completely changed for you in Australia. So maybe we talked a little bit about your amazing relationship with Ben and what he meant to you, but maybe you could tell us a little bit how you actually got to meet Ben, how did this turning point actually happen?
How?
So you talk about in your book that after you arrived in Australia, a little bit, perhaps a year or so, or maybe a few years later, there was things suddenly changed for the good of it. And that was when you met Ben, I think. But how did you actually get to meet Ben?
My sister Antoinette, she used to take me to day center, and social worker there, she came up to me, she said, do you know how to read and write? And I said, no. She spoke to me, but I couldn't. She just said, leave it to me. So she came to meet my parents with interpreter. And and ask my parents if she can take me to RVRB, or Royal Victorian Institute for the Blind. And I remember my dad said, well, I think it's too late, Marie. You're not young and you're not a child and you can't see, and it's too late to go to school. And I said, I didn't want him to stop me. And I said, Dad, let me try. If I can learn, okay. If I can't, at least I tried. He said, darling, go ahead. If you want to go, go. And then she took me to RVRB, and I met Ben. And when he showed me Braille, I said to him, it's not too late. That's all I can say in English. He said, I think it is too late, but would you like to try? And I was very keen. I was very keen to learn, to know what you people world is. I said, yes, please, yes, please. And he said, that yes, please, gave me very strong power to teach you to read and write. Because when I read a book or a story, I know what your people world is. And thank God, Ben and I, we broke the gate and he let me out. And then he started telling me, you have to write your life story. And I said, no, it's a boring story. He said, no, you have to write it. Until last minute, Jill and I, we went to see him. And I think we tell him that,
Yes.
tell him that you.
That was just before he died.
Yeah.
Wow. And there's a question from an audience asking you, Marie, what was harder, learning English or learning Braille?
Actually learning English, because he used to talk about a roof. He said, a roof. And I said, can I touch? He said, no. Braille, I can feel, but things to mention, like he was teaching me English language, there was a lot of things I can't touch and I can't see. English language was harder than Braille.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. And that's from a woman who speaks 4 languages. Incredible. I want to talk a little bit about the writing process itself now. Jill, can you tell us a little bit about your collaboration? What was it like to write a book together?
Well, it was quite a journey. Over 8 years, we met. Marie would talk, tell her stories. I took notes, mainly by hand, sometimes by the computer, and write them up quite quickly, and go back and read it to Marie. And then every time I read something to Marie, she would think of more things. So the book sort of grew outwards, and I'd go back and yes, and there'd be more stories, and there'd be more depth, and there'd be more feeling, and often, sometimes Marie would cry when she remembered things. And so it was my job to capture all of that. But it was challenging. And one of the challenges for me is being a teacher. I'm also fairly full on, and I had to be really careful to keep Marie's voice and not put my own voice over Marie's voice. At the same time, that's quite a careful line, because anyone, you can't just write down what people say. You've got to craft it. You've got to make the text bright and engaging and invite people in. So I had to have quite a lot of leeway, which I became more courageous as I went along in doing that, because everything I wrote, I'd say, and sometimes I made things up actually, because I felt I knew Marie so well, I thought I knew what she would be thinking or what she would have done. So I must admit I did make up some things, Marie.
Do you want to tell us which ones?
Well, I read them out. Well, of course, she was happy with nearly everything. Anything I wasn't, she'd say, she was very clear about what she wanted in it. or not.
Yes.
But Marie, say what you said in the acknowledgements.
About you.
Yeah, about.
I was going to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jill is kind of person, if you give her a story, she's a kind of person to make that story delicious. She puts pepper, salt, make it taste nicer than my story was telling. Oh, yeah.
Did you have any arguments?
Do we have any?
Arguments.
No
Yeah.
way.
I don't think so. I don't
No.
think so. I mean, there was at one point there was a period of Marie's life that I thought we should have a chapter. But Marie was very clear that she didn't want to have that in the book, and that was absolutely fine. So it was a real learning process for me. I was learning about myself at the same time as learning about Marie, and I've got to say it was an absolute privilege as something I did since I retired, to have been engaged in this and work with Marie to bring out her wonderful and extraordinary story and help her share it with other people.
And I must say, I was extremely impressed by how accessible such a complex story is. And I was thinking what a marvelous job you both did with the structure of the book, because Marie's life is so rich and it traverses several different cultures and so many different issues which we haven't even touched on yet in the conversation. How was it for you both structuring this book? Was it difficult to find a way to contain the story?
Oh, yes. A lot of work went into this, and not just from me. I had many friends who read drafts and suggested changing. One of them is my friend over there, David, and but also the people from Scribe, the publishers, the editors at Scribe. They suggested things that at the beginning I didn't particularly like about the ordering, the last two chapters, this one, and be back and forward and back and forward. But actually their advice was very good. But because, as you say, it was a complex story with a lot of different strands, to sort of tie them all in together so that it makes sense chronologically, but also all the stories came out. It was a lot of work, but it was interesting work. I loved it.
Fantastic. Marie, did you want to add something to this?
No, it was interesting. It was very interesting.
Marie, I want to talk about something which I found absolutely amazing. I just cannot, I mean, I've learned 2 languages myself in my lifetime, but I just could not imagine what it was like for you at the same time to learn English, to learn reading and writing and doing this in Braille. And in the book, you talk about the process of how you did it. Would you mind telling us a bit how you really, in real life, how did you manage this?
I managed because I really want to escape from my own world. Like I said, my world, I didn't know nothing. I was little girl in big woman. So I was looking forward to go tomorrow and next day. I used to sit down in my bedroom, everyone asleep. I used to rewriting, and because Braille machine make a noise, sometimes my mom used to come and knock on the door. Stop clicking, we can't sleep. Mom, I have to be ready for 8 o'clock and I have to take my homework with me. And it's like, I said to myself, I have to have a thin skin to take it, to do it. Thick skin to take it, thin skin to do it. I have to do it. I can't see, but I have got a healthy brain. And my brain was like a sponge, taking everything inside because I didn't use my brain when I was a child. So I said to myself, now it's a time for me to use it. Yeah.
And then you started reading books. You started from children's books, yeah?
Yeah, I start reading a book. Ben gave me a book. He said, take this book home and read it and tell me about it. I couldn't wait to get home and go to bed and start reading. I went to bed and I start reading, and my sister said, Marie, are you talking to yourself in your dream or when you sleep? I said, no, I'm reading. She said, how are you reading with light off? I said, I'm reading with my hands. My dream came true because when my sisters used to come from school, I used to say, I wish I can read and write. I can hear them reading different language, Arabic. In Syria, they only used to teach Arabic. So they're reading Arabic, they're reading story, they're drawing, they doing the writing. Why I can't? Oh, because I can't see. But I said my dream came true. And I went next day, said to Ben, I said, oh my God, I start reading. I was so excited to start reading. Yeah.
And there's a question from the audience, which kind of ties also with what I want to ask you. So I wanted to ask you, Marie, whether you also read audiobooks, and somebody else is asking from the audience, what sort of modern technology do you use to help with your disability?
Actually, at the moment, I don't use anything. But when I was studying, when I was doing interpreting course, I was using a computer with JAWS.
Mm-hmm. And what about audiobooks?
Audio.
Yes.
Quicker than reading Braille. I used to listen and write, taking notes. Yeah, audio.
And speaking about technology and to help with disability, this is not modern, but it's this also, I found it really incredible. But only in Australia you decided to start walking with a cane. Could you tell us about that?
Ben was talking to me for 3 years to learn to use a cane. And I was worried. I'm going to leave Braille and learn to use a cane. And also I said to him, I said, I can't leave human being's arm and depend on a piece of stick. He said, you'll be fine. I said, stick won't tell me what's in the front coming up. And then we finished from the class, Jill's class. Everyone went home and I was waiting for the taxi. And Secretary Veronica was there upstairs and I wanted to go upstairs. I couldn't go upstairs because I had no cane. How I'm going to find the stairs? I said to myself, well, I learned Braille, I learned English, a Greek language. Why can't I learn to use a cane? I said, tomorrow I'm going to RVRB and talk to Ben. I went and I said, Ben, I'm ready to learn to use a cane. He said, hooray, I'll call my boss now. So now I've got 3 canes at home.
I just wanted to add that what used to be RVIB is Vision Australia now. Is that correct, Marie?
Sorry?
What used to be RVIB is now Vision Australia.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now it's Vision Australia.
Now back to Ben. The book is called A Different Kind of Seeing, and this is what you write. Ben taught me how to see, a different kind of seeing. What do you mean by this, Marie? What kind of seeing is this?
It's kind of seeing, I see with my fingers. When I'm reading, straight away I'm thinking what's under my fingers, what I am reading. You people, when you read, you look at the book and you read. You see with your eyes and you see with your mind, because your eyes is looking and your mind is telling your eyes what's there. But my mind, my fingers are telling my mind what's under my fingers. So I'm sure it's completely different kind of seeing when I gave, what's it called, neurology? Mm-hmm. When at Ben's, when I gave a speech and I said
eulogy.
His
Yeah.
eulogy.
Yeah. I said, Ben taught me to see, different kind of seeing, not like you people see with your eyes. It's a different kind of seeing. And thanks to Jill chose that name.
And can I just add something here, because
Of
we were
course.
talking about this coming down in the car this morning. And the way, Marie, the way you talk about this, it's not just the seeing with your fingers, but Ben had a lot of wisdom. And Ben, for example, really helped Marie to see herself as an independent individual adult. Her family loved her, but often thought that because she was disabled, she would never be independent. And so Ben taught her, I think very, very importantly, to stand up to that and just to say, look, Mum, I'm an adult, I'm going to do this. And I think that was part, wasn't it, Marie, of the different kind of seeing. He gave you seeing into yourself and into other people as well as reading with your fingers.
He did, yes. I remember once they were going to camping and he asked me if I want to go, and I said, no, I can't. He said, why? I said, because I have to ask my mum and dad, and because I'm blind, I'm not allowed. He said, you don't have to ask. You just say, Mum, I'm going. I said, oh my God, I can't do that. I'm mid-listing. He said, you can do that. So next time when we preparing for camping, I went home and I think I was very brave to say, Mum, I'm packing up my bag and I'm going camping with my teacher and all the stuff. My mum was like surprised that I said, can I go? He said, don't say, can I go? Just say, Mum, I'm going. And I did, I went. So he said, see?
Oh, that's a wonderful story. Thank you, Marie.
You're welcome. He gave me great confidence actually about everything. Even when I did my interpreting course, I asked him, this is what I want to do. He said, good for you, go. Yeah.
Speaking of interpretation, of you working as an interpreter, you write in the book, Marie, that working as an interpreter with refugees and torture survivors helped you to accept your own blindness, helped you to feel better about yourself. And could you perhaps tell us a little bit about this?
I'm very privileged that I'm working with refugees.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also am privileged that I hear their stories, I feel for them, and yeah, I'm very happy with my work and I'm very happy with people I'm working with. If you're happy with people you're working with, you just can't wait to go next day. Where I work is like my second home. And
can I just say something here as well, just as another answer, because Marie also says in the chapter about working at the Foundation House that so many of the clients are very damaged by their experience, and there's a lot of depression and sadness and marriage breakups and things like that. And Marie at some point wrote, thank goodness I'm not depressed, I'm not suicidal, I'm only blind.
Exactly.
And thank goodness I'm only blind, and I appreciate, my good life and realise my life is in many ways better than many of the clients' lives.
Exactly. So putting it into perspective.
Yep.
Now, very unfortunately, I've got so many more questions I want to ask you both, but we kind of running towards the end of the conversation. So I just want to pose to each of you one last question. And we'll probably have to keep it fairly brief. I'm so sorry. Jill, what I want to ask you as your last question is, are you planning to write something next, or a new book, or are you already working on something new?
Writing books, as you will know, Lee, is really, really hard work. And I'm not as young as I used to be. I am writing a short, well, what I'm trying to write about now, I'm a member of a group called the Rubicon Forest Protection Group, and I'm passionate about the fact that our beautiful forests are all being logged north of Melbourne. and the wildlife's going. So at the moment, I'm trying to write about that. I'm trying to write about the fact that koala habitat is being logged, and we are losing so much for the next generation. So that's my current and my next project.
It sounds urgent. Wonderful. Thank you. Marie, my last question for you is, I said to you before we started this event that this event means to me a lot personally too, because my child has low vision. We're also clients of Vision Australia. And I wonder, do you have any advice to offer for parents like me who have either child with low vision or blind child?
My advice will be keep encourage him. I would like to, to tell all the parents, encourage your child with any disability. I think encourage is the best thing for people with disability. Because when I first start going to RVRB, my relatives, my neighbors, oh, why you're going? You're not young, you're not child. What are you going to do with if you learn to read and write and language? Yeah, but I'm not listening. I'm going tomorrow. So courage is the best. Whatever we do, even like small thing I learned today, good for you. Yeah, like courage is very good for.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That really resonates. And I can see here now that it's very timely, now that we're so about to wrap up, that somebody from the audience is saying, this conversation has been such a tonic at the end of a difficult year. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And somebody else says many thanks for a truly memorable session. And every best wish to each all for their futures. I also want to thank you for this wonderful conversation, Jill and Marie. It was such a pleasure and privilege to talk to you, and I'm sure the audience learned a lot. And if you would like to read the book, I'll just show you again this amazing cover. The Braille probably doesn't come through the camera so well, but if you would like to purchase the book, it's available in all good bookshops. It's available online, and the regional Geelong libraries also have some copies for you. Now, as you know, Geelong Libraries and the Geelong Heritage Centre have reopened with temporary amended opening hours, and the staff are really looking forward to seeing everyone again. So please visit when you can. You can check opening hours on the website www.grlc.vic.gov.au. So thank you again.
Well, thank you, Lee. They were wonderful questions, and they were quite deep and searching, and it's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee, for having me and for having Jill and David and everyone. And thank you very much for choosing that special day, International Day for Disability People. I'm an honor to be here.
Oh.
It's an absolutely special day. I thank you very much, you, Taze, and everyone, and Kaz and everyone.
I'm sure the library is also honored to have you both. And thank you to the audience, of course.